It's time for another edition of PRosé with Vikki, Locke, and Cyndee Woolley from C2 Communications.
Cheers.
Cheers, everybody. I'm Vikki Locke, drinking a beautiful rosé today. What about you?
I have a Pinot Noir.
As usual, you've got to just... What kind is it? Is it a different kind than normal?
No, it's line 39, which is becoming my fave.
Okay.
In part because I'm addicted to Whole Foods grocery delivery, and it's on the app, so it's good.
Okay. Now, I have given Cyndee so many suggestions about whether it's books or plays or movies, and she's hated every suggestion. But last time we spoke, you and Bridget, your daughter, were going to go see Wicked, and I said it's one of my favorite plays. So what is the verdict?
Loved it. Wicked was fantastic. I'm so glad we got to see it. And what a wonderful spin on the story.
I know.
You know, just to take a villain and turn them around into just being misunderstood. I feel like that is such a message for life, that we can all use a little more compassion.
I totally agree.
Yeah.
And speaking of compassion, a new survey came out about marketing and ads, and they asked about 1,000 people what makes an ad memorable. And what do you think the number one choice was?
You know, I've always told people that it's either make them laugh or make them angry. And, you know, politics has a little bit of both of that. So I'm going to say it's got to be laugh.
You are absolutely right. That was number one. I always thought make them laugh or use animals like puppies, and it's going to be a win-win. I mean, who doesn't remember, is it the Pepsi ad with all the puppies? And you just laughed at it. What?
Yeah, puppies and kids. I mean, how can
Yes,
you go wrong?
exactly. Right? Well, one of the other ones was using celebrity endorsements. That was about 9%. And I just want to give a shout out. She doesn't know me, but Christy Brinkley. Who amongst you that's watching hasn't used this or didn't get it because of her? It's called the sculpting wand, and you put it on your neck, and Christy Brinkley does it, and she's like 200 years old, and she looks 25 and fantastic. And I got this just because of her ad.
She probably drinks cabbage juice too.
Which she tried. I don't know if you've got time to tell that story, but you tried to make a smoothie with cabbage juice, and it went horribly wrong.
Oh, gosh. No, not a smoothie. I tried to juice. I was looking for a home remedy, and I was like, potassium. So we found out that cabbage is very high in potassium, and I put it through my juicer, and let me tell you that will never, ever happen again. I took the shot, but it was lime green. I bet the cast of Wicked, you know, to get the green face going. But the smell was pretty atrocious, and yeah, gonna mark that one in the done column. Don't need to hit that again.
Live and learn. Well, we are so excited today to welcome Terry Helwig to PRosé. She is an award-winning author. Her book, Moonlight on Linoleum, won Elle Magazine's Nonfiction Book of the Year. And she's got a new book that just came out this month called Shifting Shorelines, Messages from a Wiser Self. It's been called a 21st century gift from the sea. Cyndee and I totally agree. Terry was born in Iowa, but by the time she was 11, she and her five sisters, they had moved 10 times. She probably has moved so many more times than that, which we will find out. She studied transpersonal psychology in Boulder. She got her master's in counseling in New Jersey. She now resides in her dream space, Marco Island, with her husband of 52 years, Jim, and they share a daughter, Mandy, who's in Phoenix. Wow. So we welcome to the show, Terry Helwig. Hello and cheers.
Hello and cheers to you. Great to be here. Thank you.
So what are you drinking?
I'm drinking champagne. Shifting Shorelines just came out last Tuesday, so I'm still celebrating.
I got to tell you, it's like anyone watching right now or listening, it's like you're giving free counseling to all of us. Your book is so beautifully written, but it's kind of like a journal that we can actually jot down our own experiences, and it's all just for the cost of the book, which is pretty darn cheap when you think about it.
It's a little bit cheaper than psychotherapy. Well, that's probably, I mean, that is my major, was in psychology. And I think I went that direction to try to understand my family of origin and, try not to pass on too many of the things that I saw happen in my family. Try to do some things differently and break some chains, I always like to say.
Mm-hmm.
So tell us a little bit about your growing up in your family for those people that don't know you yet.
Okay. Well, I wrote a coming of age memoir called Moonlight on Linoleum, and it's about being the oldest of 6 girls and the life that we led with my mother, who I always like to say was matrimonially challenged. So she married 6 times, and one time she married the same man twice. So it was a rather chaotic childhood, and we moved place to place. I was always the new girl in school. I went to 12 different schools, and I don't know if they ever knew my name, but she's the new girl. And, all over pretty much the Southwest. And I fell in love with the Southwest, and the big sky out there. What I think I've discovered since that time is one thing that remained constant for me. It wasn't the towns where I lived or the people that I knew, but it was the land and the sky and nature. And so I think that helped me build such an incredible bond and affinity with nature that has just carried with me my whole life, which I think is reflected in Shifting Shorelines too. The solace I feel in it, and the ease I feel, and the beauty and the teaching it seems to offer.
It's so true. I mean, I recently lost my mother. Cyndee just lost her brother, and I find such solace in the area where there's sand and beach and that wind, and I actually feel like I can breathe. So even if I'm as stressed as I can possibly be, there's something so tranquil about the water for me, and you find that too.
I do.
I'll tell you, when I was looking through your Facebook page, I said, wow, those sunsets look so familiar. They look so familiar. And I had no clue you were in Marco Island at the time. But growing up in Naples, the beach was like, that was the place where there was no stress. Walking down to the pier and about a third of the way down where the waves were crashing, that's exactly the sound that I hear in my happy place.
Yes, I love the sound of that surf. Well, and I was looking at Vikki's Instagram page, and it was like, oh my gosh, this looks like almost like mine with all the sunsets and the videos of the sunsets. And so, yes, it was very, very familiar. And the ocean, it's just so soothing to us. And I think part of it is the rhythm. There's this movement, this rocking, this holding, and like I've set up the book into the tides, but the coming in and the going out. So I think it speaks to us on so many levels, consciously and on our psyche too.
Now, you dedicated the book to your sister. So tell us a little bit about that.
Okay. Well, my sister Nancy, she was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer, and so we all raced to try to have a famous sisters reunion with her when we found out, because as you know, pancreatic cancer can take you so quickly. And so when we went there, I knew I was going to write another book, but I didn't know what the subject would be about particularly. But one thing I wanted Nancy to know was that I just leaned over while we were playing a game of cards and I said, I just want you to know that whatever my next book is going to be dedicated to you. And in Nancy's way, you know, she just kind of squeezed and put her forehead to mine and she goes, thank you. I had a feeling you might do that. And so as I wrote the book, this is a book that Nancy would like. You know, she had the biggest, most tender heart, and she could just, these commercials that people talk about, she would just be tearing up and crying, you know. And so she had such a tender heart. So I was glad to be able to write this book. And when I was going through her illness with her, there's a quote, and I do that in the dedication. It's a Rumi quote, but it was, there is a field out beyond right and wrong, and I'll meet you there. And that's, you know.
I should have told everybody mascara alert. Yes, this book will make you cry.
Well, I know we all lost somebody that we just, you know, love dearly. And so this was kind of my gift and my offering.
And she never got to read it, which
She never got to read it.
Oh.
Or perhaps she did get to read it. We don't know.
Okay. Yeah. That's a beautiful way to say it.
Yeah.
She might have been on your shoulder whispering it into your ear.
I think sometimes I did kind of call on her, you know, so maybe she helped write it. And I wrote an article for Women Writers, women's books. And they said, why did you write the book? So I wrote a lot about Nancy. And one thing I will say about her, she worked, but she wanted to retire and write before, you know, this happened. And she was a beautiful writer. She didn't get anything published, but she read widely. And so I said, you know, maybe I did write this book for both of us.
Yeah.
That's so sweet.
And you talk about things that you would say to your younger self. I get asked that question a lot. What would you tell your younger self, maybe from the 80s? And I would say, oh, don't get the perm. But really, you take it so seriously, and we should look back and not be so harsh on ourselves, right?
Oh, absolutely. Well, and that's one thing about walking this beach for 40 years. One day, I think when I was deciding or had decided to write this book, or the germ of the idea came, it was like, oh my goodness, I've been walking this beach for 40 years. And so often, you know, you just have your head down and you're worrying and you're fretting. And here's this big, beautiful beach out here in life. And it just seems like our problems are so monumental at that time. And I went, 40 years of those monumental problems, and somehow they work themselves out. And then a new one comes in and is starting to be, oh, I would just tell her not to angst so much. Those things are going to work out. You know, look up, look around, look what's here, you know.
Oh, I love that. I think I would probably even look back and say more girls' weekends too, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I do have a girls group that, you know, that's wonderful. We've been meeting for a week for 17 years now.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
It's fantastic. We absolutely organize our whole year around it.
Where are you going this year?
Yeah.
We are going, well, we went to Asheville. We just got back from Asheville, North Carolina. So we like North Carolina so much, we're probably going to go back to North Carolina. And what we do, we each take turns of figuring out which house we're going to rent. And we can tell the older we get, the more particular we are. Like, well, I want my own bathroom, and I want one level. I don't want to have to go upstairs. You know, 17 years ago, we didn't care too much about that, but now we're just putting our little
and living in a trailer. That was one bathroom, right? As a kid with 6 girls.
I don't know how we did it. I absolutely don't know how we did it. And quite honestly, you could just do everything at the same time. It was like a closet. It was smaller than a closet.
Gosh.
And probably is the reason now I kind of like a little space.
I bet.
Yeah. I was the youngest of three children, so I was constantly the one that had others kind of meddling in my space. So yeah, I'm like, give me a little stretching room.
You know what that's like. And you would get all the hand-me-downs, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes. Yeah, I got the new stuff anyway, but it was my sisters that would get all the hand-me-downs.
So are your sisters as well-rounded as you are?
Well, I want they'll be tuning in.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they're all fantastic.
I would think two of them would honestly say that they had more difficulty kind of understanding my mother until they were older in life. And then the two youngest ones, which I consider my babies, because I just felt like I practically raised them, and I have three children instead of one. And I love this. The next to the youngest one, we would get together and we'd talk about our childhood and kind of the difficulties and the crazy things. And she goes, "Oh," she said, "I kind of thought we had a good childhood." And I went, "Yes." Because I think with us, we kind of protected her from everything, and she loved being with us, and felt like we cared for her greatly. So that was a good thing.
Well, in your book, you mentioned that I think you were in school or something, and a
Um,
classmate said your mother is a playgirl. I can't remember the term you
yeah,
used, and you
that's
were just, what are you talking about?
right. Yeah. And that didn't come from them. That came from,
Right.
because actually it was a neighbor. And so, that's what the parents were saying, is that she's a playgirl. But I did go home and say, "Mom, what's a playgirl?"
What did she say?
She goes, "Why? What do you want to know?" And then I said, "Well, they said you were," and she's going, "Oh, nosy neighbors, don't pay them any mind." She never, I guess you could say it's a gift she gave me, is not to care too much about what people think. I mean, I wish she would have. I wish she had been June Cleaver sometimes. And then for those, I'm showing my age, that's Leave It to Beaver's mother. So anyway, she just went up, and sometimes when she would leave and the neighbors would peek, she'd just wave at them, and then the curtains would go closed again. She was something else.
So what was your favorite lesson, or what's the most striking lesson that's come from your history?
That's a very good question. I'm going to just think
Probably so many.
there are, but that's a very good question. And if I had to put it up, I say what I distilled Moonlight and Linoleum down to was, even if others abandon you, don't abandon yourself. And so I think that's the lesson that came from that. And then I try to think, well, where did that come from? And being the oldest of six girls, and really having the responsibility for them, because mom would be gone almost all the time, it was a hard responsibility for a young girl. But it also gave me a sense of being needed, and certainly a feeling of being loved. And so, they made me feel very whole in that. And I was able to draw on some kind of inner strength or resource, I think, to just not give up my dreams, and to know that I didn't want to continue on the lifestyle that I was in. As soon as I could make decisions for myself, I vowed I would make different decisions.
That's wonderful.
Powerful.
And what drew you to nature from the start?
Well, I do say that was the one constant I had when I moved. But I know that my grandmother, when I was 6 years old, she took me out into the garden with her. And, we would dig the soil and put the seeds in. And then it was like, oh my gosh, a miracle happens. Things start growing out of the ground, and then these vines get flowers on them, and then these flowers turn into cucumbers, and then grandma makes pickles. And, it's just like, whoa. And so, and my sister and I had 2 years on the farm. Vikki and I, my mom dropped us off with my biological father. And so we just went out every day and roamed the hills, and our imaginations ran wild. We thought we discovered dinosaur bones, but they were really cow bones, but we didn't know it. And, my grandpa fed our imagination, and we found rocks, and he goes, "Oh, green rocks are uranium." And so we brought home all these green rocks, and grandma's going, "You got to tell them they're not uranium." So it was, I had so much fun in nature. I had so much connection, so much joy. And so that was always outside the trailer house. That was always outside of any personal thing that was going on. If you could just get out in the trees or look at that beautiful full moon or those sunsets, that was, I think nature was truly Mother Nature. She was my mother, I think.
Okay. So that's when, did you start writing or thinking about writing and doing all this philosophical stuff that has to deal with nature and human nature when you were in college?
I wrote poetry even as a young girl, and that's kind of how I expressed some of the turmoil and angst inside of me. And then I had my favorite teachers always seemed to be my English teachers, and they would always encourage me with the stories that would write. They say, you really should keep up with your writing, or you tend to have a gift or something like that. And then when I was at Ohio State for a while, I took journalism courses. But I've just always, my mother wrote poetry in a little spiral notebook, and I remember finding that and reading it, and I was just so inspired, and I thought, oh, I want to put words together like that. I want to try to do that. And so I felt an affinity for writing very early on.
I find that story interesting because I thought somewhere that you said, I'm not a prolific writer. I'm a prolific lover of experience. Can you share what you meant by that?
Yes. It's okay. I'm 72 years old, and this is truly, I guess this is my fourth book, but I kind of only consider it my second. And I did write for Guideposts at Norman Vincent Peale's publication for a number of years and wrote some articles. But I have friends, and when you read the writing, it's like, oh, you got to be in there in your office, your seat in the chair, and you got to write so many hours a day. And that, for a nature lover, is just killing to my soul. And so it's like, okay, I've got to be out in nature or out in the world, and I've got to do a lot more of that than putting the words onto paper, because that's sort of my inspiration. In a sense, that is the office of my soul, so to speak. So that's what I meant by that. I'm more of a prolific lover of nature than some people say they're a writer. I say I'm a woman who likes to write.
And what is the message, would you say, about shifting shorelines to somebody who, you don't have to necessarily be a nature lover, but what would you like to say is really like the mission statement of this new book?
The message is from a wiser self. I would hope that we would all try to connect with that which is larger than outside ourselves. That, okay, I'll liken it like this, and it's going to be a metaphor again. I believe sometimes with the things that happen in our life, these are like clouds that come and go in our sky. But the message that I want us to try to take away from it is we are really more like the sky. We have this big expanse. We're human, we're spiritual beings having a human experience. And so maybe we should observe the clouds and observe the weather and all the things that go on, but never lose touch with kind of the bigger picture of who we are, and not get so caught up in the minutia of everything. That's
And
a
you must
long way of condensing. I didn't condense that, but
And you must be so proud of your daughter. I mean, everything that you feel, obviously you made such an impression on her. Tell everyone what she's doing right now.
Well, she's an environmental attorney that worked at the EPA for 10 years, and then NOAA, Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And now she's very interested in the sustainability of water and agriculture, land use. And she said she got tired of litigating and working from the top down, like punishing. She wanted to more educate and work from the bottom up, and to tell people why certain practices are better, and to shine a light on the people that are doing these practices so that we can help them too, and just kind of make the world a little better, kinder place.
So wonderful. She wants to keep those shorelines clean.
She definitely does. That was not lost on us during the Deepwater Horizon oil spill, because we didn't know what was going to be happening to our shoreline out here either. Yeah.
So what's next for you?
Oh, resting on my laurels. I have this idea for a novel, which I only have written nonfiction. And so, but this idea will not leave me alone, and it's haunted me for years. And so I know the setting, I know the characters, I don't know the plot, but it takes place in Albuquerque and Big Sky country. And so I want to explore that, but I'm going to take my time. I'm going to be very much, out in the world and taking my time.
Taking your time. And you're going to be in Naples for people that are watching or listening in the Florida area. Are they going to be able to see you, or just maybe get an autographed book? How can that happen?
Well, at the South Regional Library on November 13th, from 11 to 3, I think it is, they're having a book fair, and local authors are going to be there. I will be there. My husband will be there. And, my daughter may pop in and out. I'll definitely have books of Shifting Shorelines and the Moonlight on Linoleum. Happy to autograph. And I've even, since it's Christmas, I've tied the books with a little piece of jute and taken an authentic Marco shell and glued it onto that you can slip over the book. So you can have a little bit of the beach with you. But anyway, that's what I'll be doing.
Perfect.
And then there's also a book signing at Sunshine Booksellers in Marco Island on the 10th of November at 4:00.
So you're very busy.
This is a wonderful, busy time. This is like when you give birth to your baby and you get to show them to everybody and show them pictures, and it's a fun time.
Shifting Shorelines, Messages from a Wiser Self. Thank you so much for being with us on PRosé. We wish you the best of luck and much more champagne.
Thank you very much. It's delightful to be with you. Thank you so much.
Join us next week for another edition of PRosé with Vikki, Locke, and Cyndee Woolley from C2 Communications.